when I speak to a lot of Indians who love cricket, they talk about Dhoni and they talk about Sachin Tendulkar and they talk
Yeah.
about Kohli and they talk about Kumble with such reverence. But Kapil Dev, I don't feel that people talk enough about him
About
because
him.
I think, if anything, he should be on the pinnacle because he was the start
Yeah.
of that change. I think he should be held in greater reverence than those guys. But
I,
that's my opinion.
Welcome back, everyone, to another Chatterbox reaction. My name is Joyce, and today I'm joined by the lovely RV. How are you?
what's going on, Joyce? I am very, very good. I am looking forward to Christmas. And what about yourself?
Yes, I'm doing well, and I am looking forward to a lovely Christmas in this goddamn, not really a lockdown, but pretty much a lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
What's up with you, Mr. Turtleneck? I.e.,
Hey, woo! Christmas is around the corner.
yeah,
Can't wait.
pretty much is.
Santa's going to be dropping some presents for me because I've been a good boy this year. So hey,
Says
yeah,
himself.
yes.
All right. Okay.
Can I
All
get you some Haribo from Amazon with that
I
deal?
know. My Santa Claus is called Brother Claus. So hey,
right. Okay, guys. Well, P is going to be extremely excited with today's video because it's related to cricket. Okay, so we are reacting to Kapil Dev and the story of 1983 World Cup because the movie 83 is about to release on December 23rd. So I thought it would be a good idea to look at the actual footage from the 1983 World Cup and learn a bit more about Kapil Dev, right? So yeah, let's take a look.
Kapil Dev was one of those cricketers who, certainly when he became captain, he led from the front. He inspired his team with deeds, and he offered up plenty with both bat and ball. A really fabulous, one of the great all-rounders in cricket.
Good delivery again from Kapil Dev. Cut it back in, might just have flicked the
You
bat.
never see that
So
angle
Big
anymore,
Max
do
goes
you?
for
From
eight.
like
Big trouble
behind
for
the
England
batsman,
at
the
177
camera.
for
You
eight
never
in
see
the
that anymore.
54th over.
True.
Kapil Dev with as much ability as anyone who's played cricket, but mentally strong, and still is. I can tell you, you meet Kapil now and you listen to him talk about the game, he thinks tough.
England went into that semi-final at Old Trafford as big favourites. They qualified quite comfortably from their 14 group, and on home soil, you know, they would have been very strong favourites, and there was a real feeling in the country that England could win their first ever World Cup.
Another wicket to Kapil Dev, and out goes 202 for 9.
It was 60 overs in those days, and England were bowled out for just over 200. Kapil Dev got 3 wickets, and Mahendra Amarnath, who people generally remember as a batsman, but with his canny medium pace, took quite a few useful wickets in that tournament as well, and England were bowled out for a pretty paltry score.
Perfectly timed. The last ball of the day. Bob Willis's leg stump goes over, and England are dismissed at the end of 60 overs for a score of 213.
Kapil got 3 wickets against England. He was captain that day and obviously did a really good job leading India because England just didn't seem to be in the match at any stage. Given that India had rarely troubled England in Test cricket or much in one-day cricket to that point in English conditions, I guess it was a big shock that losing to them in that semi-final.
Until facing Bob Willis, 3 runs wanted for India to reach the final. And that will be, I think, 2.
England won the toss and batted first, and they sort of just meandered.
Oh, wow.
Back then they needed security line.
Against a good Indian batting lineup was not enough.
It reminded me of a match at Sabina Park.
2, 1, 3 for
And that,
4.
look, they hadn't even won at that point. There was just scores were level and they ran onto the pitch.
Field to be cleared. This, I think, we can confidently predict will be the last ball, and there can be no English recriminations. It will be a tremendous Indian
Tremendous
victory.
indeed.
They've beaten West Indies, they've beaten Australia.
Look at that smile.
There's a common misconception about that India side that it was essentially Kapil Dev's team, and while he did have an outstanding tournament, it really was a team effort. Guys like Madan Lal and Roger Binney, and Mahinda Amarnath, who got man of the match in the semi-final and the final. In English conditions, against a team who many thought were the best in the world at the time in the West Indies, they produced a masterclass of adapting to conditions and coming to the party when it mattered.
So they'll be happy with the single because that brings up the 100 for India. 100 on the board, 4 men out, 6 now to Patel.
In 1983, the World Cup was again held in England, and the scene was set
West
for
Indies
a
at that
third
time,
West
man.
Indies triumph.
Yeah,
Back in
they
the day,
were.
They really were the masters of the one-day
Richards.
game.
Oh,
Viv
what a
Richards
legend,
still
mate. What a
in
legend,
his prime as a
Viv.
batsman. They had great pace bowlers who were able to deliver devastating blows. And up against an India side that many had found perhaps a little surprising that they had got as far as they had done. They certainly were given no chance at all of getting one over on the West Indies, but of course in a 2-horse race in the final anything could happen.
Well, that's safe enough.
Look how small Lords looks in 1983. You can see the car park.
The West
That's
Indies were
how
the best
small the
team in the
ground
world
is.
at the time, and they had so many big names that just a look at the team sheet would have been quite daunting. But India had some very plucky characters themselves. They played pretty well in the Caribbean Test Series that previous winter, and they had an emerging side with lots of big game players who would have relished the challenge.
Oh. England had a bowler called Gomez.
Having said that, he's just given away 4 runs with a rank long hop. This is the danger time for West Indies, where Gomes and Richards
It must have been so intense.
12 overs between them.
At the halfway stage, India had been bowled out for 183, which would have been a poor score, especially in a final. And coming up against that West Indies attack, they really just kind of blinked in the headlights. It took a few decent partnerships lower down the order even to drag them up to that score. And in a 60-over game with the might of the West Indies batting lineup, people really would have been forgiven for thinking this could only have gone one way.
It's all over, that's the end. 183 all out.
It wasn't a great total. It was something that I guess put them in the game, but the West Indies, with their powerful batting lineup, the likes of Desmond Haynes, Viv Richards, would have fancied getting over the line and collecting their 3rd triumph.
Good shot.
Imagine being at that game.
Not so good. Beautifully caught. He's hit that away to within 15 yards.
What's with the security, man? What's the
And
security?
the Indian skipper has done a tremendous job to get back there. Marvellous running catch. And Richards has gone for 33. He was charging through, calling Desmond Haynes for 2, but didn't quite get it.
What
It would have
a
landed
great
10 to
catch.
15 yards inside the boundary, and Kapil Dev had a long way to go to make his ground.
Kapil Dev famously said, we might not have a winning total, boys, but we have a total we can fight with, and fight they did. And the sight of Kapil running back to the grandstand to catch Viv over his right shoulder, it's one of the great sights in cricket, as is the moment of victory, which was celebrated not just by Indian people here in England, but Indian people all over the world, who must surely that night have had the party of their lives.
And that's out. Yes, it's all over this time. Lost his nerve in the end, did Michael Holding, tried to swing that straight ball.
God, they must have been over the moon.
How delighted he looks. 140 all out, West Indies. And the margin of their victory, 43 runs, as India race into the pavilion with the Prudential Cup theirs. Tremendous victory. Rank outstanding.
People must be going crazy.
1 when this competition got underway, and they've beaten West Indies twice, they've beaten Australia, they've beaten England, and they've round off a fantastic fortnight.
That Indian World Cup team were fated as heroes on their return to India. It really catalysed.
Is he drinking milk, Couple
exactly
days?
the
Oh yeah,
one
because
day.
he wasn't
Really
drinking
roots
alcohol,
of
I
what
think.
Yeah, because
now
that is how the
sees
bottled milk
exposure
came back in the
into
days.
cricket in the 90s and around the turn of the century. This, in many ways, was the start of it.
And an observation here for Kapil Dev to receive the trophy. Tremendous performance by this Indian side. And here's a man who's been
What an
largely
iconic
responsible for
moment.
it over the last 2 weeks. Skipper the side quite beautifully, made his own contributions with bat and ball.
India has always been a huge cricketing nation, but to win on the global stage, to claim their first World Cup really was a game changer, and it is what helped cricket move from being, I guess, a popular
in
sport
India
to being the only sport that the Indians were bothered about. That's why to this day Kapil Dev is a living legend, and it is why India and cricket go hand in hand.
Oh, this got me a bit emotional. Wasn't expecting that. Go on. The man who knows everything about cricket, P.
As much as it was a great watching the video, it's also hard to watch because, as I've said before, this was the transference of power from the West Indies. The West Indies were seen as a great team. They had some of the greatest cricketers of all time, Viv Richards. And then this is where you saw the shift to Asia, where India started to become a global powerhouse in cricket. Before that, you'd never kind of look up to India and go, hey, they are the team to watch. Now, that was a shift. And I don't think the West Indies ever really got to the heights of that era. Watching that cricketer, he's fantastic. He was great ambassador for his country, but it was hard to swallow, just the shift and how much West Indies have fallen. And even though he's a great ambassador for his country, and what he did was remarkable, it's just so hard to take. But he did something amazing. And I always kind of go, even back then, England had terrible security. Have they ever improved? I mean, Euros just happened and they had terrible security then. And back then they had terrible security. Just everyone just run on the pitch. Who's that guy who ran on the field at least 3 times in 3 different matches?
Stand-up comedian, wasn't it?
He just walks onto the pitch dressed up as a cricketer 3 times in 3 different matches. How terrible is English security that anybody can just walk on and just do what they want? Come on.
What about you, Arvi? What did you think?
Yeah,
are you a cricket fan? You are.
I am. I'm probably not a massive cricket fan, but I'm a fan to the extent where I do watch the IPL when it's on, when it comes around, and I do watch international cricket, especially if India, England, or Australia are involved. Some of the other nations I'm not so keen on because they're not great. Maybe New Zealand, South Africa, certain games, but I don't watch county cricket. So I'm a fan of cricket, but I'm not one of the biggest fans of cricket. Put it that way. I'm not like a mega fan, so I do watch it when I can. What I would say is that this video was giving a good insight to people who didn't really know the story of 1983, and since we've already watched the trailer for the upcoming movie with Ranveer Singh, I think we kind of, even if we didn't already know the story, we were given a clue with that trailer as well. But what this video does really well is it has the opinions of those journalists that we saw, Jonathan Liu and I think his name was Sean Taylor, was it? And what they basically explained was the prominence that cricket has in India in terms of its explosion after this World Cup. I've never known India in my lifetime to ever be a country that wasn't madly in love with cricket. Like, cricket is like a religion in India, right? So, and I was born 6 years after this. So for me, I've never known an India to not be madly in love with cricket. But this was telling a story of that time when cricket wasn't as mad, So we kind of were recounting history watching that little video there, because it is basically saying this was the emergence. That was when the big sort of explosion, if you like, happened, where there was like mass hysteria over this sport that was born in that moment when Kapil Dev's India team managed this triumph over a great West Indian team, as P was saying. So and it was, not only was it a turning point in the terms of a shift of power of who the dominant force in cricket was in that time. West Indies was sort of handing over the baton to India for that period at least. But because of the birth and emergence of this popularity of cricket, it kind of just signaled change. I mean, that was the 80s were a real time of change in the world generally. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff going on with the Berlin Wall, and like there's a shift of power everywhere basically. So it's kind of fitting that this era was the one that made India wake up to the religion of cricket. You know?
One of the things I keep looking at is when I speak to a lot of Indians who love cricket, they talk about Dhoni and they talk about Sachin Tendulkar and they talk about Kohli and they talk about Kumble with such reverence. But Kapil Dev, I don't feel people talk enough about him, because I think, if anything, he should be on the pinnacle, because he was the start of that change. I think he should be held in greater reverence than those guys, but that's my opinion.
I think that's the reason now they've made a movie.
Yeah,
right? Like they made a movie on Dhoni, right?
Yeah.
So now they've made a movie on Kapil Dev and the 84 World Cup.
I can try and help explain that, P, because I've seen Indian men in the older generation talk down about these older players as they age, and I think it's a thing within Indian. It's a thing within Indian culture, because my dad does it, and he's not the only one. When I was younger, I thought my dad was the only one. I thought this guy is crazy, but it's not just my dad. That I've seen loads of different uncles say it, and just a lot of Indian men as they age, they feel this way about their sportsmen that they used to like. They get to a point where they're like, move on and make way for the younger players. So when certain players get older, they forget all the great things that player has given them, like Dhoni, like, maybe not Sachin because he's a bit different, but, even players like Kumble, that sometimes when they get older, there's a tendency just to say, okay, let the younger players come in and, you've done your bit, now move on, you're too old, that sort of thing. So I don't know why that is, but that definitely exists from what I've seen, my observations. I've definitely seen that being a thing. And maybe it's just the fact that obviously Kapil Dev did his thing and he was the first that did it with India. But after those players like Sachin and Ganguly and Dravid and all the other great players, Mohammad Azharuddin, these guys came along in the 90s. And, people like Kapil Dev and the players of the 80s, they were quickly forgotten because of it. Because the emergence of the newer players, it was so exciting to see the fresh blood come in. So it does happen. I don't know if in England we do it so much with.
I mean, you might not be talking about them as much, but I don't think anyone would ever forget Kapil Dev or any of the older players, because they are iconic.
Yeah, maybe forget is a too strong a word, but it just seems like they move on quickly. They pay respect very quickly and just say, okay, thanks. Now they move on, that sort of thing. So yeah,
could be. But I'm really glad that we watched this video, because you can clearly see the grit and the determination it took for the Indian team to overcome the so-called mighty West Indies, right? Like West Indies were at the top of their game back then. So just the fact that you can see that in this video, it's just, I wish
was Viv Richards still playing when you guys first started watching cricket, or did he retire by that stage?
Oh no! When I started watching cricket, Viv Richards had retired. He had retired. Yeah. Yes.
I have to tell you this now that we're talking about Vivian Richards. Remember that trailer that we watched, Badhai Ho?
Yeah.
You remember the lady?
Oh, his wife.
No, he didn't They didn't marry. That was the that was the big controversy, that they had a child without.
I heard about that. Yeah. I heard about that. Yeah.
So she was Neena Gupta.
What's this? So Viv Richards had a kid out of wedlock.
Yeah.
With a big Indian star.
Really? Yeah, she was. Wow.
Yeah. Neena Gupta is her name, and her daughter now, Masaba. That's his daughter. So their daughter. She's a fashion designer now.
Wow. Yeah. Didn't know that.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry, because we were talking about Vivian Richards, I was like, I have to say this in case you don't know. But no, this is such an iconic and magical moment for all Indians, and I think just watching that little clip just I'm glad that we watched it, because of course in the movie they're going to recreate those moments, right? It's never going to be the same as watching the original footage, and that's why I thought it was important that we at least watched it before the movie releases on well, I think it's releasing on this Thursday. So yeah, and I'm really looking forward to watching Ranveer play Kapil Dev in '83. I really am looking forward to it. And I just hope that the movie stays true to the actual, like the facts, and focuses on the game and doesn't sort of divert into the love story element. That's my only fear with this movie.
I'm
Because
sure
the
they
good
will.
is, there in the movie, I just hope that they
Yeah,
don't end up diverting into like a love story
yeah,
element, which is not required. Like, I hope they just
yeah,
focus purely on the game
yeah.
happened.
Exactly. As if there's not enough love stories in Indian cinema,
Yeah. we'll never have enough of it. But, I mean, because she's the producer of the movie, I
Yeah.
just hope they don't like give her too much screen
Any
time.
excuse for her to smooch up to Ranveer.
The husband and wife duo. This is going to be their first movie, I think, after their wedding. Is it?
Oh yeah, after the wedding, yeah. I've
After the
seen
wedding?
them together in Bajro Mastani.
Yeah. But I think those
And
are all before
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
wedding or after
Yeah, I
the wedding?
think so. I think that was
Before, I think.
before. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, really excited for '83 now, and fingers crossed for Ranveer Singh.
The footage was so old, right? It just looked
But it was
so
still like
different.
crystal clear, no? Like,
Yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't clear. It's just like the way, the styling of it, the way
Oh
that
yeah,
the
yeah,
camera
yeah.
was behind the wicket, and like the crowd,
Yeah.
the Lord's Stadium looked so small in comparison to modern day. So it definitely looked like it was, 3 decades ago. So
But it was really nice to see Kapil Dev. I so enjoyed looking at him, watching him in his element. So yeah, guys, that was our reaction to Kapil Dev and the story of 1983 World Cup. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section as always. And before you leave, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon. And until next time, this is PRV and myself signing out. Peace.
yeah.